All right, domain 5.1, summarize elements of effective security governance. So in domain 5.1, we're going to go over different guidelines, policies, and standards, procedures, and then external considerations when we're making our pretty much our documentation for the organization, right? Like any regulatory compliance, legal, the industry we're in, that's going to kind of guide us on what we need to be compliant in. Then we're also going to go over the type of governance and the roles and responsibilities. So that's going to be who the data owners are, who the data controllers are, and the processors. Guidelines in security governance. So guidelines in security governance are established recommendations and best practices that organizations follow to enhance their security posture. So some key points, right? If we have compliance frameworks we want to look at, like HIPAA, PCI DSS, and NIST, they're going to provide us a structured approach to our security. Security policy, these are going to be guidelines help in the creation and enforcement of security policies. They're going to define acceptable behavior and actions related to security. So, security policies. So, policies are formalized rules and guidelines that define acceptable behavior and actions within an organization. So, like when you're onboarding an employee, what's something that you always have to give them during onboarding is that acceptable use policy, right? That says, hey, you're going to be given access to these computing systems, these company resources. Here's what you can and cannot do with those resources. And then we have information security policies. So we can also tell our employees that we onboard, and this could be like iterative, right? We could do this quarterly, say, hey, remember, we have this sensitive data in an organization. It's your responsibility as an employee of this organization to not release it and to protect our intellectual property. So let's go ahead and actually define some of these documents. So an AUP, this is a policy that specifies how employees are allowed to use company resources like the computers and the networks. And especially like when we have mobile fleets, something that's huge is going to be an AUP. So we have a remote worker. When we hired him, part of that employment letter was saying, hey, to work at our company, you're going to have to sign an AUP and other legal documents to get these company MacBook, right? So key points, it's going to outline acceptable and prohibited activities. It's going to set expectations for data handling. This also protects the organization, right? Like if a user does leak information, you're always going to be responsible, right? As the organization, you have the onus, but we can say, hey, this employee did this, right? It helps better in our PR. And then it's also going to help prevent misuse of company resources. So information security policies. These are going to be documents that provide guidance on securing sensitive data and information. They're going to cover areas like data classification, access control, and incident response. High level, right? High level, okay, we have these different data classifications. We have this type of access control, and it's for these reasons. This is going to also define and ensure compliance with our legal and regulatory requirements, and also promotes a culture of security awareness. So part of our security policies may not just be a piece of paper that gets, printed at the front door. It could be a part of the culture we're kind of trying to breed within our organizations. Business continuity planning. So we've talked about this throughout the course, but now we're actually going to go over the actual document. So business continuity plans ensure that critical operations continue during disruptions, while disaster recovery plans focus on data and system recovery. So part of business continuity planning is defining these two things, right? Where disaster recovery protects data integrity and availability. Essentially like, hey, if we have a natural disaster or we have whatever disaster, is my data still going to be available? And if it's not, like, how do I ensure that it wasn't changed or there wasn't anything malicious going on? And then business continuity ensures minimal downtime during disruptions. So business continuity is our hot sites, our warm sites, saying, all right, like if something fails, we need to have business continuity. How are we going to restructure our employees? How are they going to continue to work? Do we have single points of failures that we have to define and then also fix? So disaster recovery. So disaster recovery is a crucial component of security governance that focuses on planning and procedures to ensure the recovery of IT systems in case of disaster, okay? So some key points. We want to make sure we have data backups. We want to make sure we minimize the downtime. And we also want to have regular testing of our recovery procedures and equipment, okay? And we want to have detailed documentation for every stakeholder, everybody on the team, saying, hey, if this X, Y, and Z storage array goes down, here's what we need to do. Here's the prior test. Here's what it looks like. Here's what should happen. Incident response planning. So incident response policies outline procedures to follow when a security incident recurs. This could be at a high level, right? Saying, here's your role, here's your responsibility, push this out to the stakeholders. This could also emphasize if we have countdowns, as in, hey, we have our RTO and RPO, so our return time objectives, our recovery point objectives, or recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives. We need incident response to get to phase 5 of eradication recovery within these sort of hours. This could also go over the legal and regulatory compliance during incident response. So this could be a high-level outline that says, hey, we work in this industry. Therefore, yes, do your typical incident response of containing. However, we need significant emphasis on our forensics and data preservation, all right? Our software development lifecycle. So it may be important for us as an organization and security team to kind of define our software development lifecycle. This could be also to promote a culture of having some iterative nature and go over what methodologies that we do. But from a cybersecurity standpoint, where do we fit in it? If this is defined, where do we fit in this process? How do we perform security? How do we enable the business to fit security into their development and their design? Change management. So change management is a structured process for managing changes to a system, application, or infrastructure. This is going to be important in security governance. So part of change management isn't always just a senior developer saying this will work. It could be maybe a legal team. It could be management that says, okay, this feature's good to go, as in technically it's going to be good to go. It's not going to break production. But have we seen if this breaks or violates GDPR? Does this violate anything PCI DSS compliant? If this is a cloud service, did we even think about FedRAMP before we tried bidding on this government contract, right? So we want to make sure that change management kind of has that full spectrum, not just will this work, but does this violate anything? Does this change get us out of compliance? Okay, password standards. So this is, again, just going to be a high level, a baseline that we establish that says we want these password baselines. We want 16 characters. We want complexity. We want capital, lowercase numbers, and symbols. We also want to encourage regular password changes. And then also, I want to change this. Instead of saying promote, enforce. I'm going to enforce multi-factor authentication, especially if we have a hybrid enterprise that has remote workers, the ability for users to access enterprise resources from home. We also want to define our access control standards. So access control standards determine who has access to what resources and under what conditions. Again, we're going to have our major access control standards we're going to apply across the enterprise, like role-based, mandatory access control, discretionary access control. We have things like rule-based access control. We also have attribute access control that we're going to implement within our organization. And again, what access control method we apply, we implement, we maintain is going to meet our business and security objectives. And then, of course, our physical security. Do we require physical security, and at what level? And what's our cost? What's our ROI? If we're a compound where our main thing is research and development, we're going to want good physical security. If we're a small office, we just want a receptionist. That's it. And of course, cameras, and of course, the basics for monitoring our environmental hazards, monitoring our businesses, okay? Encryption and security governance. Sometimes encryption will be a part of that compliance, right? We have to ensure we're applying encryption correctly at the right places to ensure we're compliant. And we want to define that, saying, hey, we need to have data protection for X, Y, and Z storage arrays for this sensitive data. Okay, let's go ahead and bring up our quiz. Okay, domain 5.1, guidelines, policies, and standards. So question 1, how does integrating security into the software development lifecycle enhance an organization's security posture? That's going to be B, by ensuring that security is considered and implemented at each stage of software development, minimizing vulnerabilities. So that's making ourselves useful, right? Implementing DevSecOps in our organization, saying, hey, we need to be part of this development lifecycle because it's important we maintain compliance and security when pushing out this feature, update, or entire new system. Question 2, why is it important for an organization to adhere to established encryption standards? That's going to be C, to ensure strong and tested cryptographic practices are used to protect sensitive data. Question 3, how do physical security standards contribute to an organization's overall security governance? So that's going to be B, by ensuring that physical access to critical infrastructure is appropriately secured and monitored. Question 4, what is the primary purpose of implementing an acceptable use policy in an organization? That's going to be C. We want to define the proper and improper use of our resources, right? And we want to make sure our employees understand and sign, and we can kind of hold them accountable for that. Question 5, what is the significance of change management and maintaining an organization's security posture? So to protect our changes, right? Protect our systems from any malicious or bad change, to ensure changes to IT systems and software are properly reviewed, authorized, and documented. Then last question, why are business continuity and disaster recovery plans critical components of security governance? Because we need that structured approach, right? We need a structured approach, something that is defined within an organization and pushed down to all stakeholders that says this is how we're going to respond, this is how we're going to recover from incidences that disrupt our business.